I'm going to start with just giving a little bit of information about myself. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the role of the Arts Office, also the best way for artists and creatives to connect in with us, and finish, I suppose, off by coming back to myself a little bit and the hybrid nature of what I do. So I've been the Arts Officer at Kilkenny for 21 years now. I moved back from the UK to take up the role in 2003. But I had spent many years in the UK before that. I worked in the service industry, which I think everybody should do because it really exposes you to human nature. I think it's great training for life in general. But I also worked in theatre, I worked in the music industry. I went back and studied fine art. I worked in arts development. I have managed artist studios, devised and delivered community programs. I ran a gallery. So, like everybody here, you know, I've really kind of shifted a little bit, but always within the same industry. And every so often I'll break off to just connect in with some of the things that other people said. I think it was Coleman Farrell. When we work with young people, they may not be the writer or the editor, but it doesn't mean that they can't work in the literary industry. There are other roles within it. So I always say that to young people to bear in mind that you can stay within that industry. You might not reach the peak in the area that you'd hope to, but you can stay and work around, I suppose, people that you're interested in working around and like-minded people. So the other thing I would like to say is that what I'm gonna talk about today is very specific to Kilkenny Arts Office and not on behalf of all arts offices. And one of the reasons I wanted to say that is arts offices across the country are not homogenised, and I think that that's a really important thing because it means that we can work very specifically to our counties and to the needs of our artists and creatives and our respective communities. So essentially what we do in the Arts Office Kilkenny, I work to develop, coordinate, motivate, inspire and empower artistic activity throughout the city and county. We promote the arts as a worthwhile activity for all and work to strengthen Kilkenny's position as a centre of excellence for the arts and to ensure a successful arts environment within the region. Our work is very broad and diverse. I don't know how much people know about local authority arts offices, so I'm going to try and cover as much as I can in as short a space as I can. So we work across all art forms, I suppose, is the first thing. We design, manage and facilitate a breadth of programmes, including professional development initiatives, community arts programmes, youth and family projects and festivals. We manage the public arts programme, administer grants and bursaries for projects, but also for professional development. We're also engaged in policy and strategy development, not just policies, you know, as in the county arts policy. We feed into other policies, which I think is really important. So, for example, the LECP, which is the Local Economic and Community Development Plan, which every county has, there is a role for the arts within that. And I think particularly since COVID, people have realised the amazing tool that the arts are to reach communities. But I'm also always very, very cognizant and strict about protecting the intrinsic value of the arts, that it is not just a tool, that the artists themselves are really important and the work that they make, and that it can't always only be there as a tool for to achieve other things. We also engage in cross-county collaborative programmes. So I've been a partner in ArtLinks for the last 18 years. So that's a partnership between Carlow, Kilkenny, Waterford and Wexford. And it's a professional development programme that we run across the region, mostly at the moment focused on bursaries. So we have memberships for emerging and professional artists, and we also showcase artists on our social media platforms every year. And before I move to the second page, because if I move to the second page, I'm going to forget that I scribbled this on the first page, I would like to ask for a show of hands of how many people here travelled from outside of Dublin for today's event. Brilliant. That makes my heart swell a little bit. And of course, we continually advocate for artists and for further support for the arts in our county. So upskilling has come up over and over again today, which is really interesting. And as Arts Officer, we support that in, I talk about myself in the plural sometimes because there's so much to do, I think. And we're always really small teams. People kind of used to send me Christmas cards going, Happy Christmas to Mary and the team at the Arts Office. And I would just look around and see one other person and kind of do, go team. So most arts officers have been running solo for many, many years. I currently have an assistant arts officer who came on board last July, and it is an absolute godsend, even for no other reason than a little bit more headspace to do new things. So I suppose central to our work as the practitioner, we know that time, space, training opportunities and financial supports are critical for your development, but also your security. So we devise and deliver programs that afford artists the time, space and skills to develop their practice, such as artist CPD workshops in both the business and practice of being an artist. The Arts Office funds mentoring programs, offers residency opportunities, also funds them. We administer bursaries. We also run formal and informal education opportunities. So one example I'll give you of that is, have people heard of the Creative Futures Academy? So the Creative Futures Academy runs, I suppose, really flexible, short, part and full-time postgraduate courses, and they're affiliated with NCAD, UCD and IADT, and Kilkenny, I think, is the only arts office that partners with them, but their core focus is to develop skills and talent, the talents of the creative sector. And we partnered with them for the last 2 years. So I run a bursary to enable people to attend short, part-time or full-time courses with the Creative Futures Academy. Sorry, lost my train of thought. So I suppose thus what we're trying to do is provide space and freedom to develop new skills, to meet artists and to engage in new areas of inquiry in order to deepen your practice. We also partner with Ossory Youth for our youth programmes, our climate awareness department within the local authority, our education centre, and because I'm an avid charity shopper all my life, during COVID I partnered with the charity shops because they were the only thing that I missed during the lockdown. I was also painfully aware of how their opportunities to fundraise had, dropped significantly. So I did a county-wide, in actual fact it went kind of national, and we did a big project over 3 years called Knitted Together, where it was open to men, but they didn't join in. But women knitted and crocheted squares and made these amazing, designed these beautiful blankets, which we donated to the charity shops, and they sold them. But when we did it during the lockdown, it was brilliant because we had grannies telling us that they were ripping back jumpers and that they were tired of knitting jumpers for their grandchildren and didn't want them. So they thought it was a much better, because we couldn't get wool for the first one, so people were literally, reusing what they had, which is very important. We also create paid opportunities for artists to work on various programs, mainly with our community and our youth programs. So we employ artists all the time. We put together panels for different types of projects that we do. We also have a very successful emerging curator program which supports and mentors emerging curators to develop and progress their skills, their experience and ultimately their careers. So community and youth arts programming is also a very significant part of the work that we undertake, and these programs provide opportunities for civic participation, cultural enrichment, social inclusion, personal growth, skill development and lifelong learning. It also impacts health and well-being, community building, awareness raising and encourages action. And I suppose the particular action we're trying to encourage at the moment is all around the climate crisis, even though we've been doing it for the last 20 years, because there's a policy in place now. They seem to be more interested, which means I'm getting more money, so that's good. Coleman Farrell, oh yeah, no, I've already covered these. I keep digressing to my little scribbles on the side of it. But one of the other reasons that our focus is on the artist first and foremost is because that impacts our community, our youth programs so much. If artists are not trained, if they don't feel confident, if they don't feel, I suppose, respected and understand their craft really well, then the communities and the young people that they work with suffer greatly. So the more we invest in the artists, the more everybody benefits in the long run. So the artist is always at the centre of what we do. So the other thing, before I go on to how artists connect with us, Brian Regan touched on being interdependent, and he mentioned about working together towards a collective goal. And that's something that we do, that I just have a particular interest in neuroscience on an aside. I'm really interested in. So there is such a thing as bigger than self goals. So it's about working collectively towards one goal, and that's what Knitted Together was all about. But neuroscience has proven how much this benefits us. So if it benefits us as communities, there's a lot of talk today about minding our mental health. We are all artists, but we're also human. We're the same as everybody else in one way, even though we function, work, and we approach the world maybe slightly differently. But by that very fact, we need the same types of nurturing. So working interdependently can only benefit us, and particularly if we work collectively towards something. She says that as a visual artist who hates working with other people, but I understand how it benefits others. I like to lock myself in a room and listen to music. So in order to engage with us, we have an extensive database. So a simple email to the Arts Office. Thank you. She's very efficient, that girl. I really like her. My 5-minute warning. Joining our database, a simple email with your name and contact detail and your art form in particular, because all our databases are broken down into art form, means that you'll receive direct updates on opportunities and grants and programs as they arise. We also have a Facebook page, which apparently is only for old people. So my son keeps telling me anyway. We have 3 Instagram accounts, and we're nearly on TikTok. We get younger every day. And we also have a blog, so all of our opportunities go onto our blog, so everything on our social media links you back to the blog, and it's a really lovely repository of all of our projects, which can be something really difficult, has been really difficult for me to do over the years because of time. You literally finish one thing and you just keep moving. I was also asked today to touch on the hybrid nature of the role of arts officers, so I'm going to do that in 2 ways, in regards to me as an arts officer, but also me just as a human being. So one of the things about arts officers is that we straddle the arts and non-arts world. So arts officers are based in the public sector. We work for the local authority. There is no other department like us in the local authority, and we're constantly reminded. Suzanne mentioned a parallel universe, and believe me, I never aspired to be a civil servant, so I do feel like I'm in a parallel universe sometimes. But suffice to say, we then really have to build up the skills of knowing how to navigate the non-arts world, how to talk to other people, how to help them understand the challenges for artists, sometimes using, rephrasing how we talk about things. So I sometimes will write something really big and there's loads of information about the arts in it, but ultimately I will take that out. It's in there for me. But I know what the bottom line is now. I know what people want and need to hear in order to make, and that's really important, and that has been a learning curve. And we need to do that continually because local authorities, by their very nature, staff members move around. Arts officers, heritage officers don't. We're taking in a specialist staff. So I'll never end up in the tax office, thankfully. But we need to learn how to work with all of these other departments. We also work across art forms, which I absolutely love, but it's also a challenge, and it's another learning. Over the years you learn how to work with the various art forms. So I learned really early on that mentoring programs need to be designed very differently from art form to art form. Writers, you could mentor them every single week, no problem. Visual artists, twice a year is probably enough. You give them the space and the time to, I suppose, act upon the advice they've been given. Writers are very, very different. So the other hat I wear is that of an artist, and I'm going to kind of reference what Pam said earlier about that feedback loop. And I think my life as an artist really feeds back into my role. Yes, I'm in full-time employment, but it does help me to, I suppose, empathise, which is something Stuart mentioned? No, Coleman mentioned it. Other people's issues and their frustrations and I suppose issues that come up. I've somehow managed to continue to make art throughout my practice or throughout my role as arts officer. Intermittently for a few years, but now I have a very solid studio practice and I exhibit regularly, and it definitely influences and benefits, I would say, the way that I work. I feel I have a sense of some of the challenges and frustrations and needs, and our programme in Kilkenny, like I said, is artist-centric. So essentially, we strive to nurture and invest in artists at all stages of their careers, and to do so, which is something else that came up, make that phone call, ask that question. On a regular basis, we undertake surveys and needs analysis. I never claim to know what the needs of the arts sector is. We ask the questions. If you tell us, I will do my utmost to respond to people's needs and deliver and design appropriate programs. And I think that's really important. So thank you for your time. I'm just looking at my scribbles. And I'll say one other thing. Whatever you want to do, whatever your goal or your dream is, do one thing towards it every day. No matter how big or how small, just one thing towards it. Thank you.